Welcome back, everybody, to the game of influence, where by mere listening, you will get wildly rich and influential. No, I'm just kidding. Unless you don't have a talk show. If you don't have a talk show, you're probably broke. But today, everyone, I have a very, very exciting guest on that we're going to be talking to today. My man, Mitch here. This guy, I think we met in Sam Oven's mastermind, right?
Yeah,
Is that where we're at? Yeah. And he did what, $5 million before the age of 25, has made, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a month before, built a sales team to 11. Guy understands influence. And I'm very, very much looking forward to this. He reached out and he was like, dude, we should connect. I was like, yes, we should. We should make it into a talk show episode. Let's sit down and have a conversation. So please help me welcome Mr. Mitch. Dude, I don't even know how to pronounce your last name. I just always call you Mitch G. So what's your last name? How's that pronounced?
everyone calls me the real Mitch G. So you're good at calling me the real Mitch G. But my last name's Gonsalves, but they got mistaken with the Spanish version, or in Portuguese, it's Gonsalves. So I'm Portuguese, Italian, I'm a whole bunch of things, but it's Gonsalves.
Okay, awesome, man. Gonsalves. Gonsalves
is the more Spanish.
I'm just gonna call you the real Mitch G. This is embarrassing for me. I'm terrible with names anyway. I'll remember the real Mitch G. But dude, how you been, man?
I've been blessed, man. Right now, I'm in Barcelona, Spain. First time being to Europe, so it's good to get out and especially I came here with my dad and my brother, so it's been a really wholesome experience. Yeah, and so it's been cool just experiencing different culture, different vibe, and switching it up, and also working. Right now, I'm in like a Spaces, which is like a co-working space. Overlooking the beach. It's unreal, man. So I'm really enjoying that.
That's what brought you to Spain? Just cause?
I mean, I've always wanted to go to Europe. I think, like, as an entrepreneur, we could talk about this because I think as an entrepreneur, we go into this like put the blinders on. You just go so focused and so dialed in with everything you're doing. Like for me, like since I got kind of incubated from Sam Ovens, like since I was 18. So I got indoctrinated with Sam when I was young, right? And so
how old are you now?
I'm 26.
26. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I got indoctrinated into this like laser focus kind of mentality, like very young, where I was put myself kind of in like quarantine, and I just built my business from like the ground up. And so I used to just lock in. I used to lock out of a lot of the distractions, and I would just focus on my thing. And man, there was times where I would just be so dialed where I wouldn't like leave my condo in Toronto. Like I would just be so like extremely dialed in. My Oura Ring stats would be like 98,
Yeah.
I could see through walls, and I feel like a lot of the times as an entrepreneur, man, like you get so caught up in that work that, as you probably feel, and I think a lot of people feel this these ways, is time is passing like pretty rapidly these days, right? Years are just flicking by, right? And so my big philosophy is the time elapses regardless. And one of my favorite quotes is by Marcus Aurelius. He says, "What we do now echoes into eternity." And so we only have the moment, right? And I know people always say that's cliche, we only have the moment, but for me it was like the time is going to pass anyways. It's what do we do with that a lot of time, and how can we collapse the time? So for me, I was so focused on the business, and now I'm starting to mix in a lot of more experiences because the time's going to go by anyways. And so while you're working, mix in these experiences that you can have. And that's, I mean, my change philosophy a little bit, kind of integrated, where you're still in the extremes of dialed in, but you're balancing the extremes with like other extreme
for sure
experiences.
What do you think? So we met obviously in Sam's mastermind. I feel like I mean, I love Sam, right? Like he's become a friend. I wouldn't say like a close friend or anything, because like he's kind of just like in his own little zone, and but like he's become a friend of mine. We text every now and then, and I'm an investor in school. Obviously, I think you're an investor in school too, right?
Yeah.
So you're an investor there, and I think a lot of people like see Sam as like this robotic figure, right? And he's kind of come out a little bit more and been a little bit more chill online, kind of sort of. But everybody looks at him, and obviously he's a legend in the space. What do you think though? Like, what do you think Sam gets wrong? Because I feel like everybody looks at Sam and goes, Sam has everything figured out, right? And on certain things, he certainly does. And I've paid Sam a lot of money. I know you, I'm sure, have too. But like, what do you think he gets wrong, or what do you think he doesn't have quite figured out yet?
The interesting thing with Sam and what he preaches is it. I remember in his first course, I think Accelerator, he talks about when the facts change, I change my mind. So I think a lot of people
Mm,
think that Sam has it figured out, right?
yeah.
And that that like Sam and the way that he does things is always going to be that way. And it's easy to get into that mentality of like following somebody, especially like a guy like Sam. But the interesting thing is, like he used to say back in the day, you shouldn't build an audience, right? He's like, just focus, get off social
Yep.
media. You don't need to be Gary Vee, right? But now he changed his mind where he's like, you should be building an audience and then
Yep.
feeding it and then you growing organically. When he was more paid
Yep.
ads, now he's organic. So I think that anytime you follow someone too religiously like that, you have to like, one of my favorite quotes as well is by Bruce Lee. He says, inhale what is useful, exhale what is not, and then add what is uniquely your own, right? So
Yep.
you can take pieces, what he's saying, and then put it into your own like philosophy and your own paradigm and taking the information in and then making your own decisions, right? So I
Yeah.
think it is
That's really
interesting,
good.
yeah, Sam always, he always makes these claims and things like that. And the big thing is, it's just deciding for yourself which route you should take and things like that. But I think that it's interesting when he's so locked in on one paradigm and he switches. But Sam's an extremist, right?
Yeah, for
He goes to
sure.
the one end of the extreme. Like he'll take the paid ads like $40 million a year, and then now he's going no paid ads. Like, and then he finds a balance in the middle, right? So I think
Yeah, and I
it
think
it
the thing
it
I
does require you to think like that, right?
yeah, and I think the thing I learned from Sam the most too is systems thinking, right?
Yeah.
And like Sam has this ability that I think like it's funny because like when you said he's very extreme, he's very like an all in type of thing. Hey, look at that, the power's back on, right? But he's kind of a very all in type of person. But the thing I learned from him is like he's always very clear on where he's going, and then he like reverse
Mhm.
engineers back from that, right? And I think when
Mhm.
I joined Sam, it's funny. My mom, my mom, I live in a very different world from my mom, right? I grew up with like no money on a farm in the
Mhm.
middle of nowhere, milking cows and goats at
Mhm.
5 o'clock in the morning every morning, right? So when like my mom
Mhm.
found out I paid $36,000 to go be in a mastermind with Sam, and like we met up 3 times a year, she
Mhm.
was like, "There's no way it's worth it," and I'm like, "It super was, right?" But like the reason I joined Sam's mastermind was not so much to like learn some, uh, you know, revolutionary idea of how to do things, right? It was literally just to
Mhm.
get around him and like understand how he thinks about things. And I learned more about
Mhm.
systemizing my life and how to make decisions really, really well, right? From Sam than
Mhm.
probably any other person in business that I've ever been around. Because like
Mhm.
he has this weird way of just being able to like remove emotion completely from a decision making process. But then at
Mhm.
least what I found is when I got around him, emotions were still very much involved in his decision making process when it comes to they were factors, right? And so when I would look at
Mhm.
emotions, most people would go, and this is what I used to do is they would go and they would like I would make decisions based on emotions, whereas Sam basically took the
Yeah.
emotion he was feeling and made it a fact and put that in as part of the
Mhm.
equation, right? And he was like, well, I feel this way, right? And so like I have to factor that in. And so that was probably one of the most
Mhm.
helpful things. And from someone like Sam, we talk about influence, right? I mean, that dude has a
Mhm. Mhm.
tremendous amount of influence, right? What
Mhm.
was it
Mhm.
like, or like what was your like? I guess how close are you with Sam? How much have you guys like kind of gotten to know each other? And what were your probably
Yeah.
like your biggest takeaways from just like how he created influence in his world?
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because me and Sam are pretty close. Like, anytime I text him, he'll answer, right? And like,
Yeah.
you have to realize that again. I started with Sam when I was young, and also Sam, like I've been probably in Sam's in arena now, yeah, for like 8 years. Like, I got on a sales. Sam closed me on the phone back in the day, right? Himself,
Dang.
and into up level, like his lower ticket one, right? So, like
That's crazy.
me and Sam have like because like he's seen my evolution as well
Yeah,
as like
yeah.
a student of his, right? So it is interesting. But yeah, one of the things that I noticed with like going back to like decision making, like one thing that he does more so now, which he removed that from his like decision making process where he was so fact based that he wouldn't even put emotion into it. Like he would disregard his emotions, right?
Interesting.
And he wouldn't have the emotion built into it. And but one of the things that I guess he realized, and that is interesting when it comes to decision making, is like, what is your gut feeling, like your intuition tell you to
Yeah.
do? And if the vibe feels off, or you're not supposed to do that, then you shouldn't be actually going and doing that thing. But then you also take into the account the facts and like what is true. Like he always seeks truth, which I think is something that, as we talked a little bit about, like more and more I study the Bible, the
Yeah.
more you seek truth, the more you get to the essence of the thing. And I think that's one thing that Sam's really good at, is distilling things down to its core essence. So I learned
Yeah.
that a lot from him, and that there's so many lessons, man. But I learned to just make decisions, but also come into play a little bit of like your intuition. But anytime you go too emotional with the decision making, there's a few times in my life where you're so attached to this one thing that
Yeah.
your emotion overrides anything else. And if you make your decisions solely on emotion, I'll tell you, you'll never make the right decision because it's driven solely by emotion, right? So
Yeah.
you can't go on that extreme, because there's, again, sometimes where you're so attached to this one thing, it has to be this way, I have to do this, but you have to zoom out and you have to be
Yeah.
detach yourself from the outcome and just look at it from a third party perspective, and then look at all of the things at play before you make that decision. But that's something that I learned from Sam, especially.
Yeah.
But then also in business, making them based off of data and not
Data. Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah. That's big. That's big too. It's funny. I always, like, data, man. And then I'm like, look at data. I'm like, oh, data is actually really helpful. But it's interesting you said
Yeah.
that about Sam, where he has this relentless pursuit of truth, right? And actually, you brought up Christianity, religion. I want to get to that. I want to kind of transition over to that here in just a second, because I always take a very, very different approach to high level influencers, right? I'm obviously very, very good friends with Russell Brunson, Sam Ovens, and I have, now become friends. And so you get around these influential people, and I've watched so many people. They try to build relationships, or they try to, get known by these people, right? Become friends with these people by impressing them, right? Like they're somehow going to build a better funnel than Russell, right? Or like they're somehow going to build, a better course that's going to impress Sam somehow, right? And it's like, okay, that rarely works. And what I have found to be the most influential when it comes to like getting with these people is just taking a genuine interest in them and like asking them questions that are completely outside the box, right? And I remember when we were out on the first mastermind that I came out to with Sam in California, we went out to a bar afterwards, right? Everyone, we all went out, everyone was drinking, of course, and I don't drink, not for religious reasons, although I guess kind of, but like I just don't like alcohol. And like everybody in the whole bar was drinking except for me, Sam, and like one other person. And it's probably like 11 o'clock at night. And I asked Sam, we started talking about like truth and, how he makes decisions. And I asked him about God. And I was like, hey, what's your opinion on God? Right. Because I'm obviously a very, very religious person in the sense of I believe in the God of the Bible. I hate religion, right? I follow Jesus, but I am very religious in that sense. And it was very interesting to see, because two things I noticed. Number one is you could tell that this is not a question that Sam had been asked, at least not very often, because like normally he's like a very, like there's like patterns, how you can like see Sam think, right? And it's like, right. It was like kind of like this, you know what I mean? Right. And like, so like, we're sitting there in this bar and like, you could see him like kind of not freeze, but just like, it took him a while to like process the question. Right. And when he went through and explained, and I won't go into the details of, really his answer, because that's not, not really for mine to share. I'll let him, share that if he ever wants to. But it was interesting how he basically took God outside of truth. Like they were two separate things. Right. And when I thought about that, when I looked at that, I was like, interesting, because obviously I see God, I see Jesus specifically as truth. Jesus is very clear in the Bible, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? No man comes to the Father except through me. And so, as somebody who is so analytical like Sam, And he reminds me a lot of Elon Musk, right? These people, they're incredibly intelligent, engineering mind, seeking this truth, seeking like what that is. It always is fascinating to me when the conclusion is outside of God, right? Like when God is separate from that. And so, not that one is right. I mean, I believe there is one right and wrong, but I'm curious to know with you, like, because we talked about this briefly, like, where does religion, God, Christianity, things like that fit into your worldview when it comes to making decisions, when it comes to truth, when it comes to life? And how does that influence you?
Yeah, you know what? This is actually a very interesting question because prior to getting becoming born again and like getting baptized and giving my life to Jesus, the interesting thing was I used to be pretty big into like the manifestation, law of attraction, which to an extent I still believe a lot of those things, right? Uh, in a sense. But one of the interesting thing was when I started to like really start reading the Bible and start praying, have a relationship with God, right? I thought that these two things were separated, whereas like, okay, if I believe this one thing, I can't believe this kind of like uh dichotomy or this separated thinking, right?
Yeah.
But as I started to go in deeper into it, one of the interesting things was I was talking to one of my friends, Bashar, who's also in the mastermind, and I was talking to him, and I asked him, I'm like, "What do you think about like law of attraction, manifestation, and because he's also I think Catholic or Christian, and with God?" And he said, "Well, let me ask you a question." He's like, "Do you believe God is the creator of all things?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Okay, and do you believe that He created you?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "And do you think He created everything around you?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Okay, well, if God created you and you are a creation of from God, what makes you think that you can't create from God?" And I was like, "That's
Well, I'm sorry.
interesting
What makes you think what?
that you can't create from God. Like you're not a creator
Mm.
yourself through God,
Yeah.
right?" And I was like, "Okay, that's an interesting concept." And so he's like, "Well, if you think about it, that's like the essence of manifestation, creation, right? But if you are a creation of God and you can create, right? So that's like the manifestation." So it switched my mind because I thought it was like, I don't know, like maybe demonic or whatever if I was following the law of attraction shit, right?
Yeah.
While also trying to follow, God. But I've noticed that, man, it's just like that is the truth. Like, what do you think people are manifesting and creating from?
Well,
It's coming from a higher source. Like it's coming from God. In my belief
yeah.
system now, it's like because that's the creator of all things, right?
Well, and what's interesting on that is so there's a couple of things. I've been fascinated by this concept of creation ever since I hired my mindset coach, Katie, several years back, right? Because she was all about being a creator. Here's an interesting, if you believe in the Bible, right? Which I know you do.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
is the very, very first thing that we know about God? Ready? In the beginning, God created, right?
Yeah.
So the very first thing that we know about God is that he is a creator. It's the very first thing we learn about God, right? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God
Genesis. Yeah.
created the heavens and the earth, right? Now here's the next interesting part is that he goes through, he creates, the heavens, the earth, the earth was out without form, he, plants, the animals, all these things. And then when God created man, how did he create man? He literally reached down, he breathed into the Adam's nostrils, right? And God created man in his own image. And so when you talk about this concept of being a creator, right? Like this is all something I go back to. It's like literally the very first thing that we know about God is that he was a creator. And it says that God created us in his own image. So like by definition, then we have the power to go through and create. Right. And so when you talk about like law of attraction and manifestation or whatever, all that, I believe in all of those things. Not really what I call it. Right. But like I absolutely believe in those things because we are creators, as exactly as you said. You know what I'm saying? And I just found that so fascinating that that's how we were created.
Yeah. And that's kind of what shifted a little bit in my mind, where it's like, okay, well, that is the ultimate truth. Then, if you're looking at it from the perspective of like creation, how you're creating things, it's like the more that and for me, the more that I seek and have a relationship with God, the more these things reveal themselves. And what the
Yeah.
interesting thing is, and we can kind of talk about this, but one of the things that I've noticed is that you can if you just are aware, you can see God's miracles in real time. You can see him moving things in your life in real time, and you know that as you're creating as well, God is moving and creating for you, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just an interesting thing of how I started to then dive deeper into that. And the similar way where I manifested the things early on, which was when I wasn't really had a relationship with God, I was just manifesting and I was, visualizing all these things. But that by definition is creating, right? So
Yes. Yes.
now I've been able to do it from the lens of God, which was it's been much more
Way
interesting.
cooler, dude. It's way better.
Yeah,
Jesus is
yeah,
awesome,
yeah, yeah,
right? So I
yeah.
want to continue down this vein, but I actually have a question on this because now I'm curious with you. What made you come to Christ, right? Specifically, like what made you go, okay, I believe that the God of the Bible, Christ, Jesus, right? Like I believe that like that is the truth. And like what led you to this
Mhm.
realization? Because obviously, dude, religion is one of my topics, dude. I could talk for 12 straight hours and not get bored, like 12 days in a row,
Mhm.
right? Like I
Mhm.
absolutely love religion. I debate. I was just down in Costa Rica with Dan Henry. And
Mhm.
he's Muslim now, right?
Mhm.
His wife, his ex-wife, and so we were talking, deep in about Islam and like different things. I'm fascinated by religion, right? So like what made you
Mhm.
believe, like why do you know the Bible is true?
Yeah, man. So I can tell you a little bit about my testimony, but one of the interesting things, uh, like I'm obviously quite new. I only got baptized like 3 months ago, so like still born again new. But one of
Congratulations,
the
man.
interesting
Amazing.
things, yeah, I appreciate it, man. So, one of the things was my one of my best friends is he's he's probably going to be a pastor. He's like he can recite verses off the dome. He's like it's honestly unbelievable. But anyway, so he kind of got me deeper into it, and we'd always have these long conversations, and every single time it just made so much sense because he was speaking through that lens of the Bible, and he was mixing it in with everything that we were talking about in terms of like what this manifestation or within business. He would then kind of weave it in, and it made so much sense. And then just having a relationship with God, reading the Bible. But one of the things was, and I'll tell you a story,
Yeah,
and this is an
please
interesting
do.
story. So this was during the heart of COVID, okay, during 2020. Uh, so one day it was like I think a Monday morning, and I was drinking a coffee at like 10 a.m. and I started like couldn't like having trouble breathing, and I was like,
Mm.
man, am I having COVID or something? Like, and I was like freaking out,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I started getting anxious, and you start thinking, and you have this like
yeah.
feedback loop, whatever. So I'm like, whoa, like I don't even know what's going on. So then I called, like in Canada, we had this like health line. I called them. They're like, oh yeah, you should probably go to emergency, just get checked, whatever. So I went to the hospital, and now it's like I was delayed. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I started working, but I got anxious, and I was like, nah, I don't. I was like, fine, I'm gonna go. But this
Yeah.
time it's like three p.m. in the afternoon now. So I go to the hospital. I'm getting the blood work done. They're taking my blood pressure, taking my blood, and I asked the nurse, I'm like, can I go to Tim Hortons in Canada? We have Tim Hortons, so like it's kind of
Yeah,
like Dunkin' Donuts. So like,
yeah, yeah,
I was like, can
yeah,
I can
yeah,
I
yeah.
get a muffin or something? Like I haven't eaten all day. And she's like, oh no, if you leave, you can't come back in because that was when the COVID restrictions were like extreme,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah.
in Canada. She's like, if you leave, you can't come back in. So I was like, damn, and I was like, man, I'm like basically shaking at this point because I'm like 18 hours, right? Fasting.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, no, like I was like, can you get me? And I was just basically saying, like, I'm hungry, I need food, right? And then so she's like, whatever. She's like, okay, go sit down. So I'm now in the waiting room. I would say about like an hour later, out of nowhere, the doors open, those like where they open like they swing open, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was like a light was behind her. It looked like an angel came out of these doors, right? She comes with a sandwich and a juice out of nowhere, like an hour later. I didn't even know she still remembered. She brought me a sandwich. Everyone there's like 20 people in the waiting room. She brings it to me, right? And I was like, I was like, wow, like I started eating the sandwich, drinking the juice, and I'm like, I felt 100 times better. Then I go, the doctor calls me in, I go, they do all the blood work. Now I go to a different waiting room, which is like deeper in the hospital, and I'm waiting there. And I'm just sitting in the chair, and there's like, it's like a horseshoe, and there's a big beam in front of me, like by the door. And out of nowhere, my friend who I just mentioned, who's going to be a pastor, out of nowhere, this is before he started like this is like, again, a couple of years ago, before he was like
Yeah, yeah.
deep into it, he just randomly started sending me verses out of nowhere and
Mm.
videos on like how, and one of the first verse he sent me was, and you probably know this one, but it said, along the effects, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it said, do not worry what you shall eat or what you should drink or what
Yep.
you shall wear, because only the pagans worry about these things. For are
Yeah.
you not more important than the pagans? For he will give you all the food you should drink, or the food you should eat, the water you should drink, or whatever. And that was the verse he sent to me, and I was like, damn, like, because that in that same essence, when she brought me the food, I was worried about food and I was gonna have it,
That's so
but
wild.
in that moment, he brought me the food, right? And then he
Yeah.
started just again, I wasn't responding to him. He was just like a stream of verses and videos and stuff out of
Wow.
nowhere. He didn't even know I was in the hospital. My phone was on like 1%. So my phone's on 1%. I'm watching the video about like this verse that somebody's reading, and it's talking about like health and like revival and things like this. And then boom, my phone shuts off and everybody's gone from the waiting room. I've been waiting in the waiting room for like an hour and a half. Literally 30 seconds later, my phone dies. The doctor comes in and says, yeah, you're good. You don't have anything. You're good to go. I walk out, my phone's dead. I walk out of the hospital, there's a taxi sitting right there. Hop in the taxi, takes me to my house. And I was like, if God's not real, then what was those
That's so
miracles
wild.
in real time? And I was analyzing it, and I was like seeing it from a third party perspective. But in the waiting room, I felt the Holy Spirit pierce through me like this overbearing, overwaving feeling just rushed through my body. And I
Yeah.
just felt so like peaceful, whole, and like secure. And like it was just a such a wild experience. And then again,
Yeah.
boom, 30 seconds later, the doctor comes and says, you're good to go and nothing's wrong with you. So it was just, that was the first time where I felt the Holy Spirit. And I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, this is not of this world. This is a higher
Yeah.
being, you know? So that was the first time. And then quite recently, actually, like 4 or 5 months ago, my brother was getting married. And leading up to this, I was like pretty heavy into it. I'm going to church every Sunday now for the past few years, right? In Miami. And so I was gotten like
What
heavy
kind of church you go
into
to?
just Christian church, like it's called VU. It's
Cool.
a nice one in Miami. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
And and so anyways, I'm there, and yeah, so I've been going to the church, and then about 6 months ago, yeah, about 4 months ago, my brother was getting married, and I was in Toronto, and there was certain thing was gonna like was supposed to happen. I was supposed to like there's something that was gonna happen at the wedding that didn't end up that was supposed to happen didn't happen. Anyways, leading up to that, the week before, it was just such a wholesome experience because I would have never been able to do these certain things, and I knew that God had removed this certain thing from my life
Yeah.
in order for me to experience those wholesome moments with my brother, my dad, like getting ready with them, taking my brother out like the day before his wedding, all these things. And I know, and I just kept sensing that God was telling me to go all in, like because I was in real time with my friend who's like the pastor. We were analyzing what was happening in real time, and he was saying, "You see
So
how."
cool.
That removed for your life, so this could happen, and then he's like, "Watch what's gonna happen next. This is gonna happen because of this," and then it happened, like the next couple of days, and like the whole week or 2 weeks, we were calling God's blessings, and it was revealing Himself in real time. He was moving mountains and removing certain things and people from my life, so it
Yeah.
could allow me the time, and especially with my business, which we haven't talked about, but I started a
Yeah.
new
We'll get there. We'll
software
get there.
business,
Yeah.
which I want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like this like intersection between these two pieces. And then the day I get back from Toronto back to Miami, my church is hosting a conference, a 3-day church conference. And so I go because it's the day I get back. I go to the church conference, amazing experience, like so many pastors, etc. And then again, I just felt God telling me to go all in, go all in. And then the very last sermon on the Saturday night, it was all about going all in with God.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that one just hit me to my core. And then I just told myself, yeah, I'm going to get baptized. The next day, they're doing baptisms at the church. And then I decided, me, my friend, two of my buddies did it, brothers in Christ. And so all three of us got baptized that day. And it was amazing, man.
That's amazing, dude. And I'm always fascinated to ask people about, their testimonies and stuff. And I really appreciate you sharing. Because everybody has a different story, right? And like some people are gonna be listening right now, they're gonna be like, okay, Mitch, you know what I mean? And other people are gonna relate to it like so much. And it's like, God speaks to everybody differently. Some people it's very, very subtle, right? Some people it's, amazing experiences like this. Some people it's in the, the midst of pain, right? I mean, I found God. I found God because of the death of my brother, right? And then, Jesus through dealing with, spiritual warfare and things. And it's like, God has these things. And one of my favorite quotes, and it's clearly evident in your life with this is, God can be seen in the details, right? Like, and when you actually look at like the details of things, it's very, very, it's very powerful, right? And I'm curious, I do want to get to business, but I do have one more question on the Christianity front of things, because I think one of the big things that I am pretty against right now when it comes to the Christian realm, of, people professing the name of Christ or whatever it is. Not that you're doing this in any way, shape, or form, but like, is this whole concept of like prosperity gospel, right? Where it is, you believe in Christ and like God wants you to be rich, all of your life will be easy if you just like give it to Christ, he'll bless you financially if as long as you like this concept that, somehow that like you're going to accept Christ or you're going to start using Christ and everything is going to be easy, everything's going to work out, right? Which is it's very, very not true, right? It's very against the Bible. In fact, Jesus says the exact opposite, right? Like by following him, you're going to have struggles, you're going to have tribulations and all of these things, right? I'm curious, one of the things that I have been very, very affected by studying, and I don't want to say into, because I think it's always there, but like just aware of, is the like kind of the demonic realm, the spiritual realm, the fact that we have not just an enemy, but what we have an intelligent enemy, a coordinated enemy, right? An enemy that wants to see us fail. And so, like when we're talking about Christian and manifestation, right? It's like, yes, you have the power to go and do that, but there's also an enemy out there, right? That wants to see you not follow God, that wants to see you not experience his benefits and the fruit of that, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like,
Oh,
have you
yeah.
experienced any of that or because I mean, I could talk about that for hours. Like my pastor right now, dude, my pastor's so awesome. We go to a pretty big church, but like this guy, he's big, he's jacked, he's bald, he's covered in tattoos, and he is like all in, sold out for Jesus, right? And he like, he's getting up there and like, declaring war on the spiritual realm, and like, we're going all in. So like, we're in the midst of it. Like as a church right now, we're like going through and studying it. But like, have you experienced any of that, or what are your thoughts on just that and the influence that has?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? During the last 6 months, I knew what God was telling me to do. I heard him. He was telling me go this way. But sometimes you can call it the enemy wants you to go in this other way and disobey God, right? And so I was disobeying God, getting caught up, with certain women and this and that, especially living in Miami, right? So I was going down one pathway, right? And so, and I knew God was telling me, go this route, right? He was telling me this is the way, but I was disobeying him because I wanted to continue going down this path because that, you get pulled into this way, right? And so it's always going to be evident. But I realized too, when you disobey God, you're moving further away from his blessings. But when you start taking in and you start listening to him and you start putting yourself in the position and in the direction he wants you to go, that is when things start pouring onto you. There's one of the verses I love too. It essentially says, and it's all about like momentum, and it's I interpret it as like momentum and abundance. it's essentially, and I can pull it up, the actual quote, but it's essentially, the one who has more will be given more, but the
Yeah.
one who has less, even less will be given unto him,
Yep.
right? And so when you have more, and you seeking in his direction, more will be given unto you. But even that one that has less, and you keep seeking these, I guess you can call them evil ways or demonic ways, and you feed into that enemy, even less will be given unto you.
Yeah.
So you'll
I think,
spiral. It's like the feedback loop, right?
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect transition into business, which is, I do want to talk about this because you're obviously someone, when I first joined Sam Ovens Mastermind, this, whenever I do any, kind of mastermind or group, new group, whatever, I go and I find, I find 2 or 3 people that are in the group that, I think are like, killing it, or just like are doing, like, have a
Mm-hmm.
brand, have a I don't know, I want to call it a vibe, but kind of that energy, that feeling of like, okay, I resonate with this,
Mm-hmm.
belief systems or whatever. You're definitely one of those people, right? And I appreciate, I mean, back in the day, you sent me over your VSL, and like, I studied a lot of that, with you. And that verse that you were just talking about being more given to you, right? One of the commands that we are told is to be fruitful and multiply, right? But the parable of the talents is so fascinating, right? Because it's, the first guy was given 1 talent, the second guy was given 2 talents, the third guy was
Mm-hmm.
given 5 talents, right? And a talent, most people I don't think realize this, but a talent was not a small sum of money, right? A talent
Mm-hmm.
was an entire lifetime of wages, right? Like, that's how much a talent was. And so when
Mm-hmm.
the talent, the people, the guy had 5 went and, created 10, the guy that 2 went and he doubled it. And then the guy that had 1, right, he buried it into the ground. He did nothing with it. He squandered it. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
not only when the master came back, when, when the servant came back, not only did he take that talent and give it to the man that had the most, right? But something very interesting that I don't think a lot of people catch, and I've said this many times, is like, he was actually rebuked. It was said, it was like, woe unto you, you wicked servant, right? He
Mm-hmm.
had gone through and he was like literally cursed for not doing something with it. And so, as entrepreneurs, you and I both, right, producers of the world, I feel like, we have a very unique view on the world, and a very unique set of gifts, where, most
Mm-hmm.
people that are tied to a 9 to 5 job, or most people that are tied to, a fixed type of income, nothing morally wrong with that. But like, the way that they see and look at the world is very, very different than us as
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs. Right. And I believe that
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs specifically are given a higher calling, if you will, or a higher responsibility in the area of production than the average person. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to business, like, fill me in, like, catch me up to speed, because it's been a while since we've hung out, or even, we don't really know each other,
Mm-hmm.
but like, catch me up to speed. What are you doing with business? What have you been working on? Like, what's your vision, and kind of like, what are you doing there? I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. Yeah, if you would have asked me 12 months ago, I would have said probably something different. But over the past 12 months, I've been working on a new software called optimateai.com. And
Optimate.
essentially, Optimate AI, it's basically optimize and automate. And essentially, right now, we're tackling just high ticket businesses, and essentially simplifying, automating your business. But it's also a payment platform. Think of it as like
Nice.
your high ticket headquarters, your business headquarters.
Okay.
So it's not a CRM. It's more so where you can take payments, you can create custom payment plans from there, but also tracks your sales and gives you analytics. Because as a lot of the times we use spreadsheets and then they're
Can I actually
inaccurate. You
pause for
have
a second?
yeah, yeah,
Can you back up for those that don't? Because I don't know. Most people probably don't know your backstory at all. I
yeah,
know a little bit of it. Can you give us like a 2 to 3 minute recap of like what came
yeah,
before this, like how we got to here?
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
feel like that's
yeah,
would be really, really relevant
yeah, yeah,
to this. Yeah. Because you said you got started like 18 or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, well, I mean, I've always been business oriented, man. Like when I was 11, I had a paper route and I was going door to door knocking and selling newspaper subscriptions. So I was a hustler since I was young, man.
Yeah.
I had a car detailing business when I was 16 out of my parents' driveway.
Love
Would
it.
just post ads on Craigslist,
Bro,
Kijiji,
I sold bread
Kijiji
door to
is.
door, dude. When I was 14 years
There you
old,
go.
or no, not 14. When I was 11 years old, I literally went door to door. I knew how to make homemade bread from scratch. And I literally went door
Yeah.
to door and I printed off flyers and I went and I would collect orders on like Monday and then I would go make the
Hmm.
bread and I would like literally go deliver it during the week. So hustlers, man.
That's awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I mean, it's in your blood, I feel, and so like I was
Yeah.
always that way, and then I started learning how like early, like maybe 17, like stocks and current trading currencies and
Mm.
commodities and things like that. So I was like heavily invested into that. I thought that that's what I was going to do the rest of my life was make a hedge fund. But as I was doing that, I was broke, so I had no money. So like you can't get rich really off 5K. I mean, I had 5K to my name. I was just trading that, and so I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna invest all my money into myself and growing and trying to build a business. And so basically, a salesman in me, I convinced my dad to co-sign on a line of credit of like 15K or like 10 or 15K,
Wow.
and I made him co-sign on that. I put 5K into my trading account. I took the other 10K. I bought Sam's programs. I bought Ty's programs. I bought Russell's programs. I bought everybody. Like I just invested in myself. Read like 4 books a month. Like I was just like feeding my mind. This is like when I was 18. One of the initial things I did was I used to go door to door and selling. This is back in 2016. I used to sell restaurants early days of Facebook and Instagram. I would then do social media management for them. This is
For them.
before anybody and any gurus
Yeah. This is
were
like
teaching this
2016 is
stuff.
pretty early in that stage.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was like fresh. I was fresh out of high school, and I was like, man, my thought process was I see everybody posting food on Instagram, so I'm like, I'm just gonna get these restaurants to start posting food on Instagram.
Right.
So that's my thought
Dude,
process.
dude, imagine we knew what we knew now back in 2016 with social
Oh,
media.
I'd have made like $50 million.
Bro, we'd be so rich. Like so rich.
Yeah.
Like it was so wild how easy it was to go. Like and
Oh,
and
it's
and
so
Ty, I
easy,
think is
man.
Ty's the greatest a great example of that, right? I feel like Ty in 2016 probably had similar to maybe a little bit more, but similar to like the knowledge, right, that we have now with this. And like
Yeah,
just like it clicked for
exactly.
him. And he went from being like, oh, I have a couple $1,000,000 to like hundreds of millions, right? In the social media
Hmm.
boom. But anyway, sorry, continue.
Hmm.
I just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, talking about ties, so I was going door to door. So I was just like, I'd go to like 20, 30 restaurants, 40 restaurants a day, just knocking on them. But I
Crazy.
would go during the day. But no, none of the owners were there. I remember this one time, it was like 9 p.m. at night, and I pull up. I've been to like 30, handing out these flyers, whatever, and none of them answered.
Yeah, they don't
There's no
care.
owners.
Yeah, yeah.
I pull up 9 p.m. at night. I'm like, all right, man. I'm sitting in my car in my Honda Civic, and I'm looking at myself in the beer. I'm like, man, I do not want to go. The guy's not going to be there. It's all that
Yeah.
negative talk. You start doubting
Yeah.
yourself. Like,
Yep.
he's not going to be in there. You don't. You just go home. Da 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 da. But I'm like, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, you're going to go in there and you're going to close them. So get my little clipboard, my little flyers. I walk in. I say to the hostess, I'm
Yes.
like, is the owner here? He's like, yeah. He's like, he brings him out. It's this Sri Lankan guy. And he's like, I was like, man, I want to help you grow your restaurant. He's like, all right, come sit with me. So I sit in the booth with him. I pull it out. I start doing my pitch, and I tell him the price. He pauses. He gets up and leaves. And I'm like, all right, I guess he doesn't want it, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
comes back with a checkbook, writes a check, rips it off, hands it to me, and says, come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we'll get to work. So I picked the checkbook up. I took the check. I remember driving home, just like windows
Do you
down,
remember how
like
much it was?
probably 1,500 a month.
$1,500. Yeah,
Yeah,
buddy.
1,500 bucks a month, and I was absolutely hyped, man. Like it was one of the best feelings ever, because one
Yeah.
first client, and it made it real. Like even though
Yep.
I immediately went to the bank and cashed a check, and I just remember the feeling of driving home. Like I think it really gave me hope, and it's like I can actually do this, and
Yep.
it had this like confirmation that I was on the right path. And yeah, man, I was just so hyped. I went home. I was probably bumping like 50 cents or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah, dude.
I the next day I come, I help him out, and then man, that one client we just did Facebook ads for him back when Facebook ads weren't even like, no one was doing it. I just did like promos, giveaways, grew his email list. And you think about this, a city of 2,000 or about 100,000 people, I got an email list of like 2,500 people for him in a span of like
Crazy.
2-3 months. And he went from 90K a month to 120 a month. And he couldn't break 90. He's like, if you can help me break 90, he's like, I'm going to be so happy. He got to 120. And then he said that he didn't want to work together. He sort of wanted to do flyers. I'm like, dude, do you not see what we're doing here? And this was, again, early social media. He didn't know the direct ROI, but I'm like, dude, where do you think all these customers are coming from? So anyways, that was also when I was transitioning into helping financial advisors, because I wanted to, again, build a hedge fund. So I'm like, oh, I was going to, help hedge funds. So I started working with a couple like wealth managers, hedge funds. So I grew an agency. That was like my breakthrough. I went from selling like, the thing I hated about the agency, because I got it up to a few clients with the restaurants, but the thing I hated about it was I had to go in and collect the check every single month, physically, in handwritten check. And every single month I had to sell them on why they should continue paying me. So it sucked, right? And plus it wasn't online automated money. It was physical checks. So it sucked. And then I was like, man, I want to do this more online. And that's when I started targeting the financial advisors. And then I was just hammering them. And one of the things was I typed in Google on like financial advisors directory. And one of the things that popped up was LinkedIn. So I was like, interesting. So I started going on LinkedIn and I seen they're all on LinkedIn. And so I was like, damn, I'm just going to master LinkedIn. And so I just focused on LinkedIn. That was like my early claim to fame.
Because was LinkedIn. Mine was Instagram.
There you go. So yeah, I got my agency to like 50K a month in the span of 4 months, just going hard on LinkedIn and cold email. Got it to about 50K a month. And then I started posting on Facebook about like that. I would like my agency just results in like even in Sam's group and things like that. And I had a bunch of agencies just asking me, how are you using LinkedIn? Like I can't get clients, cold email, this stuff doesn't work for me. So I started teaching them LinkedIn.
Which, by the way, is complete BS. Anyone that's like, oh, cold, like I hate cold DM. I hate cold outreach. I hate it so much, right? It's not my jam. I don't like it. But anyone that's like, it doesn't work, I'm like, you're so dumb. Like, yes, it does. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, 100%, man. So I've been, my big thing is I'm a cold outbound guy. Like that's where
that's your bread and butter.
Cold call these financial advisors, cold call them on Wall Street. That was cutting my teeth.
You're a hustler,
man. I kicked in the teeth every day. Yeah, so that taught me a lot just with sales. So I would cold call them. I would hit them on LinkedIn, hit them on cold email. But I grew that agency to about 50K a month, and then I had all these agencies asking me how I was doing it. So I started training them, helping them just on the side of what I was doing. Because I was just growing my agency. I didn't really care about teaching. And at the time, no one really did like courses and things like that.
Right. That wasn't a thing. Yeah.
Right. So then I'm like, all right, man, I'll just help you out. So I'll just help them with like Zoom calls and stuff like that. And then they would get good results. So I'm like, all right. And at one point I got so much demand that I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do a webinar. I launched a webinar. And I'll actually tell you this story because it is interesting. So
real quick,
I posted.
Is this leading? I want to know when you made your first million. Is this leading to that?
Yeah. This is leading to that.
Okay,
go.
Okay.
And I'll be quick, but you're
good. You're good.
You're good. So I posted on Facebook about a webinar, and so I did a webinar. There's about 12 people on, and it's not like a typical webinar. Like I'm not doing the perfect webinar Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
I'm just giving value, bro. I'm on a Zoom call and I have a Google Doc, and it's basically a training. I'm doing a live training, like actual, like nobody used to do this. So at the end of the webinar, I showed them all my secrets for free.
Yeah, like and everything.
One guy at the end, he asked me, he's like, "Why are you doing this? Like, why did you show us this for free?" And I said, "Man, I believe in the law of reciprocity, and that what I put out in the world will come back to me in unfathomable ways that I can't even understand." And he's like, "Wow, man, like I love that." 2 months later, he comes back to me, takes my LinkedIn system, build a fully automated system, and shows me and basically implements it into my business. And it took days to implement this. And that guy to this day is now my business. He's been my business partner for the past few years. But he's also my business partner in a new SaaS startup, which he's very technical. He ran development teams. He's a lot older than me.
Optimate AI?
Yeah. His name's Glenn. He's an absolute savage. Like, beyond an A player, like A plus player, like beyond that, like savage, and very technical. And so he has a technical background. I'm the sales and marketing guy, so we have a good pairing,
Oh,
and
you
we
have a
always
great
have,
relationship then. Nice.
right? Yeah, we have a really good relationship. So I've always been the sales and marketing face of the business. So long story short, we launched a LinkedIn program together. We scaled that within 4 months, get it to 100K a month. So I was running ads to a VSL to a phone call. I was just doing like 8 to 12 sales calls a day. I did that. This is now end of 2018, going into 2019. Made my first million at 21, I believe. Yeah,
Wow.
21.
Congratulations.
Made
That's
my
amazing,
first
dude.
million, and then I scaled that, man. And yeah, I mean, after that point, I didn't make anything less than 100K a month for like 5 years straight, 4 years straight. So we
Mm.
were just cranking. I had a sales team. I scaled that. At one point, we had about 11 or 12 salespeople. We had mostly doing outbound. So they're doing like outbound LinkedIn, cold email, things like that.
Yeah.
And they were like SDRs, like appointment setters. This is before even anybody even knew what appointment setters was.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
learned it from,
Before Cole Gordon came along and popularized
yeah,
it all,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, we were doing SDR because I learned it from like studying SaaS, and they had a lot of SDRs, which are sales development reps, which are appointment setters now, what people call them. And so we had a bunch of SDRs that were doing LinkedIn outbound, cold email outbound calling, and then we also had Facebook that was coming inbound until I moved to YouTube ads. So I scaled that up. Then I grew a pretty sizable business, made like $5 million, and then what happened was we discovered a problem. So we had a sales team to tracking. They
Is
had to
this
manually enter. Yep.
real quick? Are we going to optimize AI?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Ultimate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So can I ask one question just real quick?
Yeah.
I don't want too much time on this, but I'm just really curious. You're like early 20s and you're making 100 grand a month and you go, like basically 5 years, of making 100 grand a month. That's a different life than most people can even wrap their head around, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's such a different world. And I know that's not profit. I know it's revenue and all that, but like,
Mm-hmm.
you've basically cracked, let's say, level one of the money game, right? Like you're making money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how much did, and like I said, you don't have to go into too much details to this, but like, how much did your perception in the world change when that happened?
Well, I'll tell you this too, because one thing as well, we'll go back a little bit of like when I started following Christ. One thing that I realized now, and one thing that interesting thing that happened to me, which I'll answer your question, but one thing that happened to me was I became more unapologetically myself,
Mm.
and see this again through the truth seeking. But I'll just be real with everybody. Making okay, people that are making 100K, 250K, even 500K a month. I even see people doing a million, 2 million a month. You think they're making a lot of money? They're making money, but again, you're not. It's revenue, and it's. I mean, in my case, it was cash, right? But it's not profit. You're spending a lot of money, and then you're reinvesting a lot of money, and then so like, yeah, it's good money, but you become numb to it. It's like it's raising your standard. But even early on, man, since I was like 18, 19, I had a guy used to do real estate as well, or why I studied real estate. I didn't actually make any deals, but I wanted to become like a real estate mogul when I was like 18. And one of the guys told me, is like, statistically speaking, he's like, man, you could be a billionaire. So like my perception early on when I was young, and especially reading a lot of books and being indoctrinated by Sam, I always thought extremely big. Like for me
Yeah.
too, man, I don't even think I think $1 million a month isn't a lot of money. I think
Yeah.
I think $100 million is not even really a lot of money. But that's just because the more you think of the money, the more the more money you see, the more you think of the money. But the more the money doesn't think of you. So you got
Yeah.
to change the perspective and basically be detached
Yeah.
from it. So I don't think my perspective changed a lot because I always kind of had that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you become numb to it. You normalize it once you get up into like the 100K to like a million a month. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty standard, especially if you're hanging around because at that level, you're not talking to people at 10K a month. You maybe your students and people you're teaching, but at that level,
Yeah.
you're hanging around people that are doing 3 million, 4 million a month. You're like, fuck, I
Yeah.
need to be like that guy, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I do want to get to Optimate AI. One last thought on that though. For me, I think the biggest shift in my life. I mean, obviously, like we all feel like ballers when we make our first $1,000 online, and then 10,000
Yeah.
or like whatever. For me, two life-changing moments for me with money where my perception of the world actually did change. One was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I made $100,000 in a day, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hmm. how how I've been making money or how I've been thinking about how money is made is so completely wrong, right? Like so
Yeah.
complete, like it really broke my reality of what was possible because I was like,
Hmm.
I posted this on Facebook the other day. I was like, my financial life changed. Probably one of the biggest financial shifts that I ever had was actually understanding that it's easier to make a lot of money in a short period of time than it is to make a little bit of money over a long period of time, right? And so
100%.
like that shift, I was like, okay, this is okay, very, very interesting, right? And then the second one was after my first 100,000 in the bank, right? Like free and clear,
Hmm.
post tax, right? And I remember
Hmm.
actually in Sam Ovens' mastermind of all things, I told this story a lot, but I'm like, there was a guy on one of the calls, and he was talking with Sam, and he was like telling Sam all the stuff that he wanted to go and do. And Sam was like, why don't you go and do it? And he's like, well, I just don't have the money for it right now. And Sam asked him, he's like, how much money do you have? The guy's like, I don't remember who it was, but he's like basically like 2 months of runway in the business. And like, dude, I just remember like you could hear a pin drop, dude, right? And like Sam looks at him and is like,
Hmm.
dude, you can't, like, you don't even have the freedom to think until you have 100 grand in the bank. You can't build anything long
Yeah.
term if you're thinking about where you're like how you're going to make your next dollar, right? Like you can't think like that.
Exactly.
And Sam goes, I would literally lose my shit if I had less than $1 million in cash. And I
Hmm.
remember when I had that, we think back to like when I had my first 100,000 in the bank, I remember thinking, for the first time in my life, I am not one, my sole focus in life is not figuring out how I'm going to pay bills, but I could actually go look into
Hmm.
the future. And like, dude, the world made so much more sense on why
Hmm.
things were the way that they were when I wasn't having to focus on just how to make money. So I just want to throw that in
You
there.
expand your horizon, right?
So much more
Your
so,
time horizon.
right? Right. So I do want to get to, I want to keep going for the sake of time here. With dot AI. But yeah. So
It's optimateai.com, by the way.
Optimate. Wait, it's not Optimate
AI.com.
dot. Wait, it's not Optimate dot AI.
No, optimateai.com.
Oh, .com. Okay, I'm on the wrong website. OptimateAI.com. I'm looking at it. Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, get paid, increase cash collect. Okay, sweet. Good thing you clarified that. All right, back over to the story. You found a problem.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, as you're scaling a high ticket business or really any business, whether agency, coaching, consulting, info product, whatever it is you're selling, you start to like experience problems, especially when you're doing scale. Like again, when you have a sales team, you have a lot of
Yeah,
infrastructure, you're taking a lot of payments, right? There's a lot of operations that need to go in it, and most entrepreneurs suck at operations, right? They're good at
true.
selling, but they're not good at the back end side, right? Luckily, I had a good partner who built internal solutions for us because most people, when they have a sales team, they're just tracking it with spreadsheets. They're collecting payments through like Stripe, and then they have their CRM, and they have all these different things, right? And it becomes a lot of like inefficient. There's a lot of like missing parts because you're collecting payments in one place, you got to do reporting in another, and then you have
Yeah,
humans
I've
manually
noticed that for
entering them,
sure.
right? They're manually entering data, and then the data you're looking at, you're like, is this even right? Is it like you have this like second guessing, your gut feeling like this is not even accurate. I know it's not accurate, but I'm looking at it. I'm trying to make
Yeah,
decisions off of data that's not that's not accurate. So that would piss me off, right? And so me and my business partner, we'd go back and forth. We built an internal solution, fully automated, and it was good at the time. But we noticed everybody else was having a similar problem, and so we decided to build this solution called optimateai.com, which at the core of it, it's a payment gateway as well, payment processor. So you can process payments and you can do custom payment plans. So one of the things that, as you know, through just selling high ticket, doing
So,
custom
so I just,
payment
I
plans
just
is
want to make
what
sure
drove
I'm
the solution.
understanding.
Yeah.
You're an actual payment processor, so I no longer need Stripe.
So
Or does it connect
that
with?
to answer your question, it's just a short question. Right
Okay.
now, we connect with Stripe. In a few months, you'll no longer need Stripe,
Dude, I
and
like where this is going. All right, continue.
you'll be able to collect payments in anything. Like you'll be able to collect credit card, debit card, ACH, wire, multiple different things and currencies all in one
What
place
about crypto?
soon. And eventually crypto, that's on the roadmap. But as of right now, we connect with Stripe
Okay. Okay, cool.
just because
Yep.
logistically, yeah. So for currently, you can integrate with Stripe. Um, and so that's one of the core things. But then, as you know, collecting payment, let's say you sell, I don't know, I'll give you a couple examples. Let's say you sell $10,000 program, right? High
Okay.
ticket course. Well, in order to collect that payment, let's say someone wants to do a payment plan, they can put down 5K today, and then they're going to do $2,500 next Thursday, and then another 2,500 in 30 days from now. How do you collect those payments on a thing like Stripe or one of these other things? You can't do it. So we would
Yeah, or
have
you have
that
to run it
problem where
manually
our
every
sales
time.
rep,
Yeah.
exactly, right? And then you have to have a spreadsheet that logs each individual transaction, and you have to have someone updating that data, especially when you have a big sales team. It becomes an absolute mess, right? Especially when you're selling 20, 30 units, 100 units a month, it becomes a mess. And so, anyways, that's one thing that Optimate solves is custom
Interesting.
payment
Okay.
plans and tracking accounts receivables. So someone pays you 10K,
Okay.
they owe you 10K, but you've only collected 5K, they still owe you the other 5K. What happens when the payment fails? What do? Then you got to go back to your handy dandy spreadsheet, see where the payment was,
Figure it
go
out.
run it again, figure it out. One thing that our Optimate does is it tracks that and it automatically collects the payment. And if it fails, it retries and has this like dunning logic through in the backend AI to collect the payment for you. And then it kind of rescues the payment, but then it also shows
Mm.
you like that revenue, but the cash that's collected from that one invoice. So it gives you more flexibility with
Okay.
collecting payments and things
Yeah.
like that. So that's
Can
one
you
core
track?
feature
Can you
of it.
track different sales reps?
Yeah, so that's the next piece. So the
Okay.
second
Okay.
piece of it
Dang.
is a
Yeah.
sales
Nice.
team. Yeah, so the next piece of it is sales team. And so one of the problems that we found was that even when we used our CRM or we used another tool, but we're collecting a payment in Stripe, it wouldn't tell us what the sales rep who closed
Yeah.
it, how much cash they collected, right? How much commission you need to pay them,
Yeah.
right? And so it was always inaccurate. It's always like somebody always had to QA it, go through and see if it was
Every
good.
freaking time, dude.
Uh, every time, right? So
Yep.
but the thing is, and this is why we're going to become our own, we are a payment processor and processing your payments because it's from the source. So you
Mm.
collect it from the app, and whoever's logged in, let's say you have a sales rep that's logged in, it automatically associates that sale to that sales rep, and it associates the commission based on the product, the amount of commission that needs to be paid for that person. So then you have
Interesting.
automated sales commission tracking, and then you can even pay out your sales reps in literally 2 clicks. You just select all the transactions, click payout, and then boom, you can pay out your sales reps in 2 clicks. So it also does that. And then we also have a sales team leaderboard, which shows your sales
Mm.
team who's the top performers, how much the cash they collected. You can even have your goals. So you can have like this like a gauge on how far you are towards your goals. So you can motivate your team. They can look at it. It ranks the top performers based on the cash or even sales that they collected. So it basically has all that built in. And again, it's 100% accurate because it comes from the source. It's coming from the time
Yeah.
of sale. So it's
Yeah.
100% accurate, which is one thing that gives me a lot of peace of mind at night. Just like, okay, I know my data is accurate on what I'm
Dude,
looking
that's
at and all the analytics are, yeah.
yeah, but dude, you're solving is one of my biggest headaches actually, is literally trusted. I mean, yes, accurate, but like trusted data
100%,
when it
bro.
comes to your finances, right? Because I'm always like,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you do like any form of, when you have yeah, any form of salesperson, anybody that's collecting cash outside of you,
Yeah.
right? When you've got,
Mm-hmm.
processing fees, when you've got payment, like all these things. So you're basically
Mm-hmm.
creating a solution that brings accurate and trusted data when it comes to your sales and revenue numbers coming into the business. Yes.
Yeah,
And
100%.
and are you like is the like down the road, are you ever planning on like turning it into a CRM, like having a CRM on the back end or no? Or
So
not yet?
our vision is not to integrate because we don't want to be a CRM. There's too many CRMs, and I actually
There's
think
so many
there's
genres. Yeah, yeah.
way better CRMs than we could ever build. So we're not
Yeah.
going to be a CRM, but we will integrate with your CRM.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
that's something that we are. It's on the roadmap. It's close, but we're going to be integrating with your CRM. So whether you use Close, HubSpot, or Go High Level, one of those, it'll integrate into it as
Okay.
well. So then you can send that data if you wanted to report it in your CRM. But this will take data from your CRM as well. But really, what we are doing is we're trying to get it to the source. So we actually don't want to be pulling data necessarily in. We want to be the source of data
Of
and then
data.
sending it to these other.
For
Yeah,
yeah.
we want to be the truth, right? Because that's the biggest problem that we found is I'm looking at these numbers and I know they're not accurate. I know that our show up
Yeah.
rate isn't that. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
don't know, like John never filled out his damn tracker or dispositioned the opportunities in the CRM. How do I know what I'm looking
Yep.
at? Then I look, all these calls, they're not actually dispositioned and they're not updated. So I'm looking at something that's not accurate, and I know it's not. But you have to make
Yep.
decisions off of that. So that was the biggest
Yeah.
problem that I found. Every day I'd look at it, and then I'd be filling out my advertising tracking sheet, and I know that that's not true. And like you
Yeah.
can't run a business like that, man. You just
Yeah.
can't. It's good going back to emotion versus making decisions off of like truth and data. And so that's the core thing that we're solving. And again, that's why we're the source of truth when it comes to sales and cash and revenue.
All right. For the sake of time, because we got to wrap this up here, because we could talk forever. But I have to have a hard stop coming up. Two more questions before we wrap up. One, with this, optimateai.com. What's the, like, 60 seconds? Like, what's the future? Where are you going with, like, what's the big grand vision for this?
Yeah. It will be irresponsible for you not to use it if you run a business. That's the vision. Like it will be irresponsible for you not, even currently as it currently stands, because it's we actually just launched 2 months ago. So as it currently stands, if you're not using it, I honestly think that you're not getting to the source of truth and not making correct decisions. So it will be
I really like that
irresponsible
truth
for people.
phrase, getting to the source of
Yeah.
truth. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
that's really what we're after, right? In terms of making good decisions that are going to help you grow your business. So that's one of the big things. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's going to be a place that that's going to simplify your business and just
Yeah.
make it run a lot more efficiently. And a lot of the time, our vision with it is to take all of the thinking away and the decision making essentially out of your, like, not out of your hands, because you're still going to obviously be the one that's going to have the final say, but we want the app is going to tell you where you should be looking and what you should be focusing on to grow your business. Where
Based
are
on
the
data.
bottlenecks? We have the data. It's going to show you precisely this is where you should be focusing on. This is the highest leverage point in your business right now to help you make more money, grow your business, get more profit, help your customers. So that's the ultimate vision of it. And right now we're tackling mainly the high ticket space. So people that sell coaches, consulting, info products, courses, things like that. You can also do low ticket subscriptions on there as well. But as it currently is built for high ticket businesses and sales teams. That's who it's mainly built for currently. And then maybe eventually we'll expand it, maybe do other additional things, but that's the core vision of it right now.
That's awesome, dude. All right, last question before we wrap up here. What problem are you trying to solve right now in your business? Like, not for other people. Like, what thing are you trying to go through and solve? And if we were to do something together, what would it, like? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I have no idea. But like, what could that look like?
Yeah, man. So the core, I'll answer the first question. So the first thing is,
I guess it is two questions.
The first piece of it, the number one problem that I'm trying to solve right now is I'm in kind of this like crosshairs, like this transitionary phase, intersection point with the SaaS and taking and go to market with the SaaS. So just getting awareness that it exists, getting users and getting feedback. Because the biggest thing right now, I'm prioritizing learning from the customer and making a good product, but it's getting users onto the product and start using it. So that's the core thing right now. Is just like getting more users, getting more customers, which I know marketing and sales, but it's like it's a new, so it's like pushing a boulder up a hill again.
Yeah, for
starting
sure,
from scratch. So that's the core thing. And then two, to answer your question, what could we do together? I mean, if there's any way that your audience could benefit from using Optimate AI, and you guys give us feedback, or you yourself, Josh, or we can do partnerships and things like that. I mean, and any which way that also I can support you, man, in my list, because I have about 50,000 people on my email list. I have pretty good tight following. So either way, any way that we can form collaborations and partnerships, I love that, man. Because one of the biggest things that I've realized in business, because I also had another software that we were selling, and one of the biggest ways that I grew that was through partnerships and through alliances and collaboration. And one of the biggest things that I learned in there is it's leverage. It's kind of like what you said earlier with like making 100K in a day. It changed your perspective on making money. Well, what this did for me, it changed my perspective on how you can grow a business, because
Yeah.
when you collaborate, the rising tide lifts all ships, right? So you both benefit, and everybody, all parties, it's a win-win-win-win situation through your customer, you, us, and our customer. So that's what I'm about these days, is creating a symbiotic partnerships and collaborations where it's not directly competing. We're working together for a common goal and a common cause. So that's what I love these
Yeah.
days, man. So any way that we could do that, it would be awesome.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that too with the software stuff, because you look at, when you say collaborations and stuff, dude, you look at ClickFunnels, and what built ClickFunnels is a massive affiliate army, right?
Yeah,
And then you look at High
100%.
Level, right? And like, when did High
Yeah.
Level blow up, right? And listen, I'm a Russell Brunson diehard. Over my dead body will I leave ClickFunnels and go to the disgustingly traitorship of High Level. I'm just kidding. But I'm not I'm a diehard with ClickFunnels. But you look at what blew up, but High Level, and Russell's even
Yeah.
said this.
Yeah.
They have an insane affiliate offer right now, right? The white labeling or whatever, like affiliates.
Yeah, it's one of the things we did with ours, man, because
Yeah,
that's one thing we did.
Yeah. So we will have to discuss that, because I am curious about this. Part of the vision, we do have to wrap up here. But part of the vision of like what we're doing is all about, I'm a big believer in talk shows. I'm a very big believer
Yep.
in having
Nice.
conversations. I believe a talk show is not only the greatest networking tool in the
Yeah.
online space today. I think most people just use them wrong, but also it's the greatest. I think it's the greatest opportunity for like ultra high ticket selling.
Yep.
To build a network of people that want to give you money, to open up opportunity. Like, there's so much around that. And so everything I do, is to help people build a golden mic, and, to
Nice.
build their influence with the talk show. Right. And so high ticket sales are, that's my jam, is, selling.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
say high ticket, I don't mean like 5 or 10 grand. I mean like 25, 50, $100,000 sales. Right. So we will have to
Mhm.
discuss that further, perhaps on another episode. If we want to do a JV or something
Yeah, we
together.
can mix up all sales, man. Like I've done over 4,000 individual sales calls, so I
So
know that like a science. So
yeah.
we'll talk a lot about stacking
We'll have to,
sales for days.
maybe we'll just do another episode and just geek out like solely on just sales. That'd be fun. All
Yeah.
right. So as we wrap up here, though, I do have a final question for you here. As we're talking about the game of influence, and the influence is like, the ability to, affect somebody else's thoughts, beliefs, patterns, behaviors, right? And actions on something. I want you to fast forward to not the end of your life, but I want you to imagine like every single person that you've ever been in front of, every stage you've spoken on, every podcast you've been on, every single one of your ideal customers, not worldwide, but just your ideal customers, the people that you have been called to serve, right? You get to go and leave them with a final message, a final idea. And here's the caveat. They will forget absolutely everything else that you ever shared with them. They will forget absolutely everything else that they've ever learned from you, right? But whatever you tell them is they believe 100%. Like, it's an absolute belief that they have, and they will, act upon that. What would be that idea or that message that you would leave with them, or that you would want them to remember, if that's the only thing that you left with them?
I have to go with my favorite Bible verse that's on my wall in my office. It says, "Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you're willing, as God wants you to be. Not pursuing dishonest gain, but being eager to serve. Not lording over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you'll receive the crown of glory that never fades away." And so that's
Mm.
that's the golden one, because man, if you're just a servant, you're a leader, and you're showing and you're leading the way, and you're a servant of God's flock, doing this not for dishonest gain, because you are willing, that is the way where everything comes to you. Because again, when the chief shepherd appears, when Jesus appears, when you go at the gates, you receive the crown of glory that never fades away. So I love that. And I think if you take that with you and just be shepherds of God's flock, that everything will fall into place in your life.
Amazing, dude. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing. We will have to do it again soon. Enjoy your time in Spain. Everyone, where can people follow you if they want to check you out? We'll link it down in the description.
Hey, you can
Where
just
can people follow you?
follow me on YouTube, Mitch Gonsalves. You just type in my name, Mitch Gonsalves. Also Twitter, Mitch Gonsalves. I've been tweeting more frequently. And then if you want
X,
to
baby.
go and check out, you go to X. Yeah. If you want to check out optimateai.com, which is the software. You can go check that out. You can book a demo directly with me, and I can show you live how it works. And I'd love to give you a demo of that. But those are the main places. Go to optimateai.com.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it, guys. We'll link those all down in the description below. As always, do not be afraid to be influential. Do not be afraid to make lots of money. Just make sure you use that influence and that money for good. That is all for today. We will catch you next time. Take it easy, fam. Peace.